I would definitely say one thing of course, in the lighter side, a good speech is always compared to the young woman's skirt. And it is for the viewer to decide, because actually the parameters are under twofold. It should be short enough to cover the essentials and long enough to make it at least interesting. So these three speakers this afternoon actually stole the show. So I would leave it to the audience to decide that who is the best, who is not the best. But I think all of them are much, much brilliant than each other. So now I would, my two brothers are here. They are equally brilliant doctors in the platform today available. We are fortunate enough. My own brother is there. I can see his bright face. Dr. Radhakrishna Ramchandani, in charge of breast cancer clinic unit head, associate professor, Department of Surgery, AIIMS Raipur. We are fortunate to have you, dear. Radhakrishna ji, of course, we are meeting virtually, but I have great respect for you, for your knowledge and uniqueness. Second is Dr. B.B. Das. He is gynae laparoscopy and surgeon, and he is actually an expert and a mentor trainer at the Regius Hospital. He is also an infertility expert. And I must add that to his biodata, that he is also an entrepreneur of a known repute. So I would now invite these two, my brothers who are equally brilliant in the field of medicine to carry forth this questionnaire session. I would request, let us be short, because we have heard these words of wisdom from two professors and one very elegant bureaucrat. So let us confine our questions to shortest minimum words, and so that we can hear from these professors, and we will let them free, because we don't want to hold their lunch and our program in between. So over to you, Dr. B.B. Das and Dr. Radhakrishna Ramchandani ji.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you. That we are very much delighted to have two eminent legend speaker of our country, Professor Sarman Singh sir in the field of medicine and Professor A.K. Mahapatra sir. So few questions, sir. I will take some time, just few moments only. Sir, one of our eminent doctor from medical field, that Dr. Ratnakar Sahu, Professor and Director of Medicine, Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital. He want to ask some question to both of you.
Thank you. At the outset, I congratulate both the speaker. Definitely their presentation is excellent. There is no doubt. And one thing is that Omicron does not affect lungs. It is very good thing. For that, less chance of admission and 10% oxygen usage there. But why like this? Any reason, sir? Why less virulent or only limited to upper respiratory tract, not to lower respiratory tract? Is there any reason?
So, can I answer?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So basically, the binding the maximum the endothelial system. You are a medical person, so you understand that upper respiratory tract. The almost all viruses, they adhere and immunity as soon as they go. So our cilia, they try to expel it out, but here our epithelial cells, the adherence is so strong, so it is taken up by that. The cilia and the lungs, the receptor are comparatively less. So the EC2, I am sure that you must be knowing. Yes. So ACE2, what we call ACE2 receptors, they are just, I mentioned, the lock type of thing. So these receptors, if you compare the upper respiratory tract, they are rich, and they are otherwise all cells they have. But they are highly rich in the upper respiratory tract, and therefore it is probably this enriches our system, and it doesn't go down, and it by preferential method. So it prefers the upper respiratory tract where the receptors are so many, and that is the reason probably it doesn't go down. That is the only justification we can have, and the mutation that has made this virus differently. So the key and lock system, ACE2 receptors are highly enriched in the upper respiratory tract endothelium.
Mainly receptor related thing. Okay, sir.
Receptors,
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you.
H2 receptors.
I think I'll just comment. Dr. Singh, you know that HIV only affects the reticuloendothelial system. The hepatitis virus only affects lungs. So they have their preferential. Because of the protein and mutated, they are not the same virus. So they have more, as Dr. Sarman Singh said, acid inhibitors are more in the throat and they capture the virus and virus enter it. So we have that preference of the virus for the organ specific. Hepatitis virus, lungs, and also the reticuloendothelial system by the HIV virus. So we know the virus has a preference. So this variety affected the upper respiratory tract more. So next mutation we don't know. We don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Sir, there is a ANI related news. There is one man called Dular Chand Munda from Salgadhi, Bukharo. So he was suffering from paralysis and he is unable to speak. And he took Covishield on January 4th last year. And after that, post vaccination, so his paralysis now is correct. He's out of paralysis and he's able to speak. It was also in the FM and also the G News. So what exactly the scientific reason? Could it be possible in science?
Listen, we all have read it. So I will leave it the answer to Dr. Mahapatra because he is more, expert in this. But personally, as a, medical doctor, I don't believe these news, channels. This cannot be scientifically, this is just not possible. And G News, the TRP things, so I don't believe, but Mahapatra may be more, clear.
But it's published by ANI as well. And
Doesn't
by
matter,
one of the-
doesn't matter. I don't believe.
Let me tell one thing. There are so many thousand channels, they just pick up hot news. The WHO in 2021 March say infodemics. There's information of epidemics which are not fact. Every day we have information which you have to understand right or wrong. Otherwise, all paralyzed patient will give him vaccine. Do you think that is acceptable to any scientific? All the spinal cord injury will get a vaccine and get paralyzed cured. So we will not accept it scientifically. It just may be coincident or it is a hype. We don't know. Without knowing the details,
Or maybe malignant, maybe if
we do not know. We do not know. The science we do not know. And the channels are giving so many wrong information to the people. So that is the reason, be careful, WHO is saying be careful. There's infodemics. There's wrong information, epidemics. And we are the country notorious for false information.
there are also news that, somebody, he felt good, so he took 12 times. So, these people, they keep on doing, but they cannot become norm. There may be some, various people. Otherwise, we investigate that what happened to these patients. It is very difficult to just by saying, TRP region, some news channel shows. And ANI also, there are, correspondents like that, they get fascinated, but without investigating. There are some channels, they investigate and they will not, air any news until otherwise verification. But some channels are there, they will, anything they will, air.
Thank you,
Right.
sir.
So, good afternoon. There is one more question. How to differentiate between COVID-19 and Omicron? Apparently, Subhra Rai is asking this. To be more precise, he is asking how to differentiate between the Delta virus infection and Omicron virus infection.
All right.
So, Sarman Singh has explained it before. You can tell again.
Yeah, I will. All right, no problem. So basically in South Africa also, this is a very interesting discovery about the Omicron. What happened that, there are multiple genes when we amplify in the RT-PCR. And then what they realized that some of the patients, clinically they are very, typical of the COVID cases, but they are not one gene, S gene, what we call, they are, not getting amplified. Other genes like RDRP, N gene, E gene, ORF gene, multiple genes are there, multiple type of kits are there. And the kits which were having S gene, they were failing all these patients typically. And then they called it that, the COVID patient with S gene failure, RT-PCR. So this was the report ultimately. And then what they investigated, and they found that, why this spike protein mutation, so the gene which targets the primer and probes they are prepared for, they have mutated. So the RT-PCR will not amplify that particular fragment of the S gene. And after that, they found out, they did sequencing, and they found this is a new variant. So the confirmatory test is, of course, the whole genome sequencing, but S gene failure is also, the dummy of the sequencing. So the Omicron will not have S gene, and because it doesn't have that gene which has the same primers, it will not amplify. So RT-PCR will be the kit which are having S gene, they will not amplify. So this kit will show the false negative, and that is the dummy you can say of the sequencing, whole genome sequence. But
can I just answer here? Can I just answer here? Because you are not doing gene sequencing, the reporting of the Omicron is very low, and we have only 10,000 cases. One side we are telling it's a milder infection, it is not Delta, and other side we are telling it is not Omicron. No. And while we have about 100 places in Odisha where you can RT-PCR, there is only one place, ILS, where you can do the genomic study. So we are really under-reporting our Omicron. 80% of cases in India are Omicron. That is what is the figure around. If it were Delta, our hospital would have been full, and many people would have been died by this time. So we are not suffering from Delta. Current infection in India is Omicron.
I reserve this, discussion because, panel discussion we were expecting. So I think this is the correct, continuation of Dr. Mahapatra, and Secretary Saab also did mention. So I would like to say that many of the, if you know the inexperience, because the infodemics, rather I would say again, this has gone that it is not dangerous. So many people, if you see, you talk to your colleagues and friends, one person has been found positive, the rest of the family members, they are getting sick, but they are not going for test. Number one reason. So it is underreporting. Number two, many of these people, they are being, secretaries have also said that they are being tested by the rapid antigen test, which is having only 60 to 70%. Best kit is having 60 to 70%, but there are also kits available being purchased by the state governments, which are having 50% sensitivity. So 50% by red test you are already ignoring, means false negative you are reporting. About half of the patient, they are not going for the test. So you can imagine 4-time calculation. सेक्रेटरी साहब बता रहे थे कि वो स्टेट बड़ा खतरनाक होता है, तो वो बिल्कुल सही बात कह रहे हैं. इसमें आप जितने केसेस आज की डेट में आ रहे हैं, आप 4 से मल्टीप्लाई कर लीजिए, इतने केस आज की डेट में 4 से मिनिमम, बिकॉज रेट हो रहा है, RT-PCR नहीं हो रहा. INSACOG गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने बनाई थी, INSACOG टोटली फेल्ड बिकॉज इट इज गिविंग रिपोर्ट आफ्टर 3 to 4 weeks. So this is not serving any purpose. The very few thousand of the cases Omicron they are reported. I fully agree with Dr. Mahapatra. I keep on saying that until otherwise it is proven, all cases are Omicron, nothing else.
In one of the TV interview, I said this infection is 4 times more infectious. In wave 2, Odisha had a peak of 12,000. So I had told in this peak we will have 30,000. But if I ask everybody in my colony, those have suffered from fever and cough and cold, nobody go for testing. Say it is so mild, why should I go and spend money? Even it is spread in my family, nobody is going to die. It has given a complete sense that neither you are going to get infected, nor you are going to require oxygen, nor you are going to die. What's the point of doing tests? So our test in Odisha has come down 12,000 to 9,000 positive, 9,000 a case. So the number of cases has gone down because we are not testing anymore. Whether in Delhi, if you see Maharashtra, is still maintaining a high level. You have seen yesterday Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, they are all above 40,000 because the number of tests done in those states are high. If you see UP, it's 15,000. In Calcutta or West Bengal, 12,000. Odisha, 9,000. It's not possible. It's not possible. So it is all under.
Right. So, if you are getting 3 lakh cases in India, you can imagine there is more than 15, 20 lakhs, which is actually not reported. Because, every third, fourth person is going for testing, and there are many more who are not. But, the question was COVID-19 and Omicron. The answer is very clear. Symptomatically, Omicron is very milder, less, but more infectious. But just to remind everyone from the medical side, I can tell you one thing, that never ignore these things. You never know whether you are infected with Delta or Omicron, because many of our medical colleagues also, they are getting infected. Somebody was got infected 1 week back. She's not getting complete relief. Now he went for a CT scan and there are changes in the CT scan. So, genome sequencing is not done in every case. Like Dr. Mahapatra said.
I fully agree with you, because this should not be again and again. Every expert will say that it should not be ignored. Number one, because
Yeah.
maybe even if it is a 20%, it might be having Delta or any other brand. Another thing, because more the infections, more chances of mutations. That's what WHO has been saying again and again. And this is a simple biology. More number of infections, more number of chances, because after every million of the virions, there will be one mutant. So it may be beneficial to virus or not. That is different. It may go unnoticed. So that is there, but chances of mutations are more. So more people whole world, they are more infected, more. Obviously, this will lead to more mutations, and some of the mutations, not necessarily one mutation or two mutations, maybe out of hundreds of mutations, maybe one is just like Delta, so can create. So it should not be. We have been, Singh Saab keh rahe the, because he is right that February 2021, everybody thought that Corona, and हम बहुत सारे एडवर्टाइजमेंट आज तक वाला तो वो बकवास दिखाता ही, आज तक ने वो फुटबॉल मार के और उसको भगाता था, कोरोना भगा दिया हमने. So that kind of stupid things some of the channels they keep on doing. But again, I would say, if you can see my interview in February also, I said that we cannot still say that Corona is gone, because any country in the world, it will remain with us. Until otherwise, whole world, that's what WHO has been saying. Equitable distribution of vaccines. Some of the countries, they are having 3 vaccines, 4 vaccines. Some are not having even single vaccine. So this should be discouraged. At least whole world should be vaccinated with 2 vaccine doses. Then we should think of booster. I am not very fan of booster dose, frankly speaking.
One thing I want to tell here, ILS does about 250 cases study. Yesterday, they had done 250 cases and 150 cases were the Omicron. So we know if you do study, then 60 to 70% will be Omicron. We are not telling that you go for genomic sequence every case, but at least diagnose COVID. In your family, there are younger people, there are middle-aged people, and the older people. Even the older people get infected from you, non-Omicron Delta, they are going to suffer. Now, that is the reason you should see that do justice to the senior citizen, people with comorbidity, people are not vaccinated. They are going to suffer. So be careful when you say COVID test is not necessary in Omicron, because you cannot do genomic. Genomic is not necessary, but COVID diagnosis is a must, so that you get isolated from other members of the family. That is very, very important. What people don't understand.
And once you are positive, you should remember that 30 to 40% still chances that you are infected with Delta variant. So that might be more serious. So you have to isolate and take care of your.
Actually, that is not supported by the evidence, because if 3.8 lakh people in India are suffering for every day and 400 deaths, Delta would have been 40% are Delta, that would have been about 1.5 lakh. And 1.5 lakh, 10,000 or 15,000 die every day, not 300 or 400. So the indirect evidence is that we are not suffering maximum by Delta. Delta is so dangerous. See, in wave 2, we had 2,700 beds in my hospital. 27. In wave 1, we had 2,400 beds. We treated more than 40,000. The number of people died in Delta, you cannot imagine. If you think 40% of India's suffering of 3.8 lakh will be 1.8 lakhs or something like that, 1.5 lakh. Do you think that 1.5 lakh suffering from a Delta?
No, sir. You said genome sequencing in Odisha, 150 out of 250 is
Omicron.
Omicron. That means the rest are Delta.
We don't know what variety, could lambda, delta, unless you go to details of science. We are only highlighting what is the proportion of Omicron in our country, not
Right.
10,000 in the last 1 month. That's all.
Right. Very
So
true.
the argument,
Thank you.
the other government, officers they are giving, the argument in the, to say so is that, probably the vaccine, because most of the people, they have been vaccinated, and that is the reason that many people, they are not going to the serious nature of the disease. That may be to some extent correct, but, I would, agree, and I also, I am convinced that the majority of cases are Omicron. Even if we consider the government's argument that even if it is a Delta, some of these people, they because of vaccination they are not going to severe disease. So both the things may be there, but I cannot say that mainly it is because of vaccine and Omicron is very less. No, I don't agree with that.
Dr.
Right.
Singh,
Thank you.
can I ask a question?
Please.
Singh, you said that you are not a great this thing of votary or supporter of a booster dose, or what government calls a precautionary dose. Now, and naturally, of course, first priority should be that everyone or whoever eligible is gets 2 vaccines actually. So there are 2 things. One is that if you have a less availability of vaccine, certain things governments do also as a part of the vaccine management. I remember in West also, one of the countries earlier, the gap between 2 doses was kept much larger, and it was brought down later on the ground that maybe at least 1 dose should be given to everyone actually. And later on, when the vaccine availability improved, they reduced the gap between the 2 also. So sometimes it's a part of vaccine management. Sometimes it's basically based on the pure scientific medical evidence that this is the optimum difference between the 2 doses. Now, a lot of people are saying, I don't know whether it's correct, a lot of people say that the impact, whatever the antibody generated or whatever, or immunity gets developed through a vaccine remains there for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. So if there is now a good availability of vaccine in the country, if the producers are saying that we are reducing our production because there is not enough demand, in that case, and government has also allowed a precautionary dose, what we call 3rd dose of the same vaccine for certain category, frontline workers and 60 plus with comorbidity. What is wrong if we have enough vaccine available? What is wrong if a 3rd vaccine, a 3rd dose is made available after whatever the optimum gap which you people think is correct?
Yeah, thank you very much, because Dr. Mahapatra and I have remained in the administrative position. You are still on the administrative position. So many times I fully agree. Sometimes if as a scientist I express my views that I use the word I am not very fond of. That does not mean that I am against. But if as an administrator there are several facilities issues, every government wants to, they are pressurized, there are various non-government organizations pressure, peer, pressures. So every government has to do what best they can do. But when you talk as a scientist, when, science doesn't recognize which country you belong or which country you don't belong. So when as a scientist you talk whole world, and you talk whether, by doing booster dosing, can you eliminate the virus? No. As a scientist, no. There is a big no. Yes, for satisfying for feasibility reasons. The other way, if as a scientist, if I think, and global leader, if you, WHO has been saying, and I am very fond of, DG of the WHO, the ideal, the government is not allowing, various governments, USA government, UK government, India government, and China government, which are major, hub of the vaccine development. Because these are the 4 countries which are making maximum vaccines. They are not allowing the companies or manufacturers to export to poor countries. That should be considered. As a scientist, I am saying, as an administrator, because now I am not in the administrative position, but so as an administrator, obviously my priority becomes my institute or my country or wherever you are. But as a scientist, if you talk, obviously to curtail the mutations or variants emerging new and to eliminate the virus, the whole country has to be, whether smallpox or polio, give any example. otherwise our neighbors are, unvaccinated, they are having various infections. You cannot, you keep on giving, it is psychological, all right, but, virus will emerge, new mutant will emerge and it will not respect the antibodies, which is happening, Omicron.
Can I just comment?
Thank you.
I think
Sir,
everybody know that about 77 countries have given booster. If you look at the US, the booster dose was started after the Pfizer after 4 months. Most of our friends in UK have got the second, third, and fourth dose. The question is that if you're a hospital employee, would you know that how many doctors have died? Take the statistics of the death in Delhi and Bombay and big cities. We are deficient doctor. If you have whatever worth, give them third dose, because if you don't give them, they are the maximum sufferer, frontline worker, the hospital worker. Second thing, it is no more called booster. Booster is that when the antibody is coming down, before it comes to the baseline, when the decline phase you give it, it is a revaccination. Because we do not know, none of the scientists, none of the companies say there will be a antibody present in the body after 6 months. All our studies have completed between all the vaccine studies is completed between 4 and 5 months, 6 months. Otherwise, you would not have vaccine in the market in November when the trial started in April. So we have to tremendously understand the limit of vaccination. Here we are talking, can we protect our healthcare employees? Can you hospital police read their first front line? 2,500 Delhi police have been infected. Read how many people, doctors have been infected. I have twice COVID. So do you want me to get another COVID? Those who are not suffered, they won't understand. You understand, once you suffered from COVID, then you understand how demoralizing this. Question is that we must have started the health worker vaccination about 3 months back, because last I took the dose in February 2021. So today I'm taking one vaccine has no meaning because my antibody level is 0. I'm sure my antibody level is 0 for the COVID. So if you have to give COVID boosting dose, boost it when the decline phase, not at 0 phase. So booster means when some antibody is there and you give that to enhance the further antibody. Today we are giving third dose, which is precautionary dose. These are fancy words. What is precaution? What is your precaution? Why don't you say it's a revaccination? These are all revaccinations.
I think exactly another, Rajya Sabha TV long back I said when, Delta came, this is a Covaxin, is a whole virus vaccine. So I said, why the seed is not being changed as a scientist? The seed should be changed time to time because particularly the whole vaccine. So the DCGI should be taken into confidence and ministry should take and, new every time, like, influenza vaccine, every year we take. Yes, Dr. Mahapatra, what he's saying, we do take, but we change the seed.
We take cholera
the seed
vaccine.
should be changed. Omicron, why Omicron we cannot change? And the vaccine, because it is overproduction of one old, virus vaccine, and now you are not making any changes. So the vaccine should be changed as and when variants are coming. So that should be ideal. That should be considered as a new vaccine, Omicron vaccine. So that should be the strategy rather than giving the same vaccine which is lying in our, we are extending the date of expiry. What is this? This is feasibility only. Date of expiry, once there are GMPs. So, you are in textile, so I am 100% sure that all IAS people, they know GMP. So GMP is there. So, you made, that this will expire after 3 months. And then for what reason? As a scientist, I am saying, you cannot say as a secretary. When I was director, I was not, supposed to say like that. But now as a scientist, I can say, on what basis you have extended the date of expiry?
Thank you, sir. One more, everybody want to hear from you because you are all eminent personalities of our country. So one of our audience, Dr. K.C. Sahu, General Manager in Rashtriya Ispat Nigam, a government PSU, and now selected as Director Commercial in National Steel Corporation. Want to clear some doubt from you.
I have a small question to the expert panel of Dr. Mahapatra, Singh, and Administrator Singh. One is IITian, two are eminent doctors. मेरा क्वेश्चन है सर, बहुत हो गया, it is too much. We are going for the corona, mask, hand washing, distance, lockdown, weekend lockdown. When will we get rid of this? You all the three people have all resources at your hands. Don't say we don't know. Then it is a failure of the medical science. When we will get rid of all the things and the country will smile again and the people will go back to their work and this country will prosper again. This is my simple question. Don't tell either other. Just tell when.
In May 2020, I said corona ko darna. We have to survive with corona. Corona will not go. We become brave. When the first wave came, when first case came in Bhubaneswar, entire Bhubaneswar had containment zone. That today we don't talk about even in family tree. So we have become brave. The disease has not gone away. This will not go. This pandemic will ultimately land in endemic. One part will be having corona, another part, because there are severe mutation, and which part will, what type of mutation, we don't know. The corona is going to stay for longer time. I don't know how many of you know, plague is there for 4,000 years. Malaria is there for 3,000 years. And polio was there for 4,000 years. Did you get afraid of polio? I don't know, any of you know, in plague 1331 to 1347, 1/3 of the people of the world died of polio, the black fever, not polio, the plague. The plague killed half of the 1/3 of the population between 1331 and 1346 or 47. In 15 years time, plague is still there. It is for, if you go to the internet, find out how long plague is existing in the earth, 4,000 years. How long the malaria is existing in the world, 4,000 years. So we have become brave. The maximum number of people die in India is Odisha, malaria. Odisha is the gold mine for malaria. Who is afraid of malaria anyway? No. So we have become brave. We have to take, but we have to have minimum pursuit to follow the principles of life. Like the Dr. were telling, helmet. Helmet protect you, not necessarily argue. Is everybody using helmet cannot have a head injury? Yes, they can have. This is police argument. It only gives some protection. No vaccine gives 100% protection. The vaccine is between 50 and 90% succession. As the virus keeps on mutation, the success rate goes down. So you have to follow the principle. This is my feeling. This coronavirus has to stay. It will stay.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you, doctor.
Thank you, sir. So one last question to Dr. Sarman Singh. This will come into his field. So what is the significance of CT count, sir? There is one question from the audience. What is the significance of CT count in the RT-PCR report?
ये सविता जैन जी, इनका थोड़ा सा शायद बैकग्राउंड आ रहा है, तो इनसे कोई अगर फोन करके कह लें, थोड़ा सा इनको वो कर लें, बार-बार हो रहा है. So you know, your CT you said
CT count. Scan. No, CT count in RT-PCR report.
CT, okay, RT-PCR.
Cycle time.
CT is obviously, it tells you the viral load. So if you know, in typical situation, yes, it has value, but again, there are various predisposing and confounding factors. If you have taken nasal swab, if you have taken oral swab, if you have taken after coffee, after gargling with betadine or Listerine in the morning or in the evening, and who has taken your swab. So various reasons are there. How good was your RNA extraction method, and how good was your RT-PCR kit. So various, this cannot be so scientifically. Yes, it has value, but it may change. It may have difference according to the sample, garbage in and garbage out. What we say, if you are not corrected, you have just touched the the tongue after coffee drink, and then nothing will come. And it might, even if it is having CT value, ordinarily it should have been 10, it might come 40, and why after 35 you will give negative. So there are various confounding.
So sir, CT value high is good or bad for everyone?
CT value high is good. Low CT value means it is very, the virus load is very high.
Yeah, so in your RT-PCR, if your CT value is high, that is a good report. The viral load is good. That is,
viral load is less amount of the virus in your sample.
Yes. Thank you, sir. And with this, I will hand it over to Sangram Bhai to close the ceremony. Yeah.
Just one doubt that I'm a college student. I wanted to ask that if someone has already recovered from COVID once or twice, his body has already made natural antibodies, do he still need to get the vaccine shots or the booster shot, because the natural made antibodies are far better than the artificial which we get?
Very good question. So, to Sarman Singh sir, so after what interval of
Dr.
recovery?
Mahapatra पहले उनको सुनते हैं, because he had twice, he was saying,
See, let me tell you
I will
something.
come with
This
a
is
science
vaccine.
question.
I
Personal
always say
experience
vaccine.
first.
I will tell you, vaccine is like a blind people looking at the elephant. There are hundreds of protein in a virus, and we are taking and sequencing 1 or 2 molecules. So vaccine and antibody, they are not same. I had suffered second time COVID on 3rd of May, and 2nd of May my antibody count was 200 times than normal, but I had COVID, which is CT count of 15. So question is that whether you have antibody, no antibody, I don't know. Second thing is that if vaccine give you protection for 6 months, your antibody after even infection will not stay more than 6 months unless you are severely infected. And we are telling in this COVID infection, 90% are mild. That means that mild infection may not generate the very high quality, very long lasting antibody. That is the reason if you would have had at least CNN, Richard Crest has suffered 3 times COVID. And after 3 times suffering COVID, after 6 months, that time there was no vaccine. There was no antibody in the body. So once you suffer from a COVID infection, natural antibody is not going to stay for more than 6 months. That is my experience. I suffered twice. I had vaccination. My antibody was high. And I got 3 months after vaccination, got COVID with a CT count of 15, which is severe. I was admitted. Luckily, I did not require oxygen requirement. Thank you very much.
Sir, so what does the guidelines say after how many months of recovering?
In addition to that, I will just what Dr. Mahapatra said. Yes, it is the question itself was having the answer in itself. The person who asked, yes, it is true that natural infection will have better quality of the antibodies, because it will stimulate our T helper cells, CD4, CD8, all type of B cells. So whole immune system will be triggered, and the various kinds of antibodies, as Dr. Mahapatra gave the example of tail of elephant. I'm not completed yet. So the vaccine will give only one spike protein, so that will enhance. But what about nucleocapsid, the other proteins, and neutralizing proteins? What antibody assays we are having, that is also very peculiar. Most of these proteins, they are not estimating the neutralizing protein antibodies. The antibodies which are able to neutralize the virus, they are actually protective. So that is very, very important, number one. Now, the second question is that how many months? So, whether it is a natural infection or vaccine generated, the world over, the studies, they have been Lancet, NEJM, all these biggest papers of the world, medical papers, they have all said that, after 6 months, it doesn't, remain protective level. Even though people say that T helper cells, they continue to remain. But for T helper cell also, a trigger is required to say them, they are silently T helper cells. They only T memory cells are there, T helper cells, they are there. So memory means memory. So T cells, memory, cells, they will remain, they will keep the coronavirus in memory. But again, to have the antibody sufficient, they will require again trigger. So whether it is a natural infection or vaccine, for that it is very, very important. What I am trying to say again and again, that vaccine, yes, but vaccine should be given. Dr. Mahapatra is also saying, I am also saying, that not using the old vaccine of the original seed. If you really want to give vaccine, number one, the bottom line, as WHO says, whole world should be vaccinated. Number two, if you have to vaccinate with the 3rd dose or 4th dose, make the new seeded vaccine, new vaccine, not the old vaccine, which is our store of the companies, and then you are just for regions, quote unquote, you want to just finish the stock.
One more thing I can tell you, that all of us suffer from malaria, typhoid. One infection doesn't give you lifelong immunity, and you are presuming COVID infection you have suffered once, give you life. So you have presumed yourself that once you suffered, it's life. Who has told that? No scientists have ever told that. So it is 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6, all depends on how much severe was infection, what was the viral load, and what is your body response to the infection. The antibody is not a 2 plus 2 is 4. It's not mathematics
Yeah,
of
5% people will never respond to any vaccine, whether rubella or any vaccine.
I think what
5%
people
is what
think,
we call non-responders. They will never produce any antibody.
what
So,
people
sir,
think,
so the answer
people
is
think,
clear, 3
let
to
me
6
tell,
months.
what you feel that the mathematics and physical principle, physics and mathematics doesn't apply to biological science. That is why if 100 people take vaccine, only 50 to 70% get antibody. There is a large number who doesn't get antibody. So that is, you have to understand, biological process are not mathematical process or equation of physics that you do this formula, this will happen. So you have to take a vaccine after 3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months. Very good, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So,
Thank
Sangram
you,
bhai,
sir.
just to
Thank you.
conclude, yeah, to you, Sangram bhai.
This is what happens when we have the luxury of our two professors, and I can still see the questionnaire still pouring in. And there are so many questions which has come in between.
83 question chat box.
Yes. So that shows, Professor Saab, your popularity, your knowledge, and particularly in-depth knowledge has actually catch the imagination. Now, this program would not be a successful one without naming few prominent guests which we have among us today. One is, the first one, I would take the name, not in the chronological manner, but of course, in the manner which has been given to me. Shri Amresh Kumarji, Saha Pramukh, Pradeshik Bhasha, Delhi Prant. Namaskar ji. The second, our one and only, Shri Om Prakash ji, Prant Toli member of RSS Delhi Prant. And then, of course, that brings me to the last, but not the least, of our this afternoon speeches, knowledge, which has been given to all of us. And I would invite my own brother, and not in the biological brother sense, but he's actually one of those persons whom we are grateful always to, to do everything for this organization. He's one of the pillars of our organization. He is, we fondly call him Sukumar sir. He might be a sir to so many students in IIT. He's a very notable professor in IIT Delhi. And I can only say that he is probably one of those persons who would like to close as a closing remark and honor our guest of honors and the speakers of this afternoon. Over to you, Sukumar sir.
Thank you, Sangram bhai, for giving a introduction. And it is really a very nice interactive session today with all our eminent speaker, and even among us, one bureaucrat of the highest level. Apart from that, we have two eminent doctors who has very nicely taken the question answer session and making it a summary to give the benefit to the common audience, and in the specific language, so to say, it can be understood by the common people. I am very much thankful in particular to Professor A.K. Mahapatra, who is now heading also the Vice Chancellor post at SOA University, Bhubaneswar. And in fact, I belong to Orissa and I have visited many a times to SOA University. And my guide, Professor P.K. Das, is also there in SOA University. So I am really indebted to Professor A.K. Mahapatra for sparing his time to come to this August gathering and giving the overall perspective of Omicron versus Delta and giving statistics so that it can be understood by the common man who are non-medical. Further, I must thank Professor Sarman Singh ji, who has nicely elaborated the physical meaning of the virus and taking it from starting from Wuhan to the overall perspective in the global scenario and where we are standing at 2021 and how the effect of Delta, Omicron and other viruses are different from each other. That perspective he has given in a very nice common man language. Thanks, sir, for giving that perspective to us. Besides, the highest level bureaucrat, Mr. Upendra Prasad Singh, who is also an engineer and happens to be from IIT Kanpur. He is heading now the Textile Ministry in our Government of India. And nice to hear from him that they have been able to deliver lot of PPE kit and masks and those during the need of the day and specifically helping to the country and also giving the perspective of Omicron and the feeling of the common man about the COVID and how a non-medico or the society feels about the effect of those diseases. Besides, I am really thankful to Dr. Ramchandani and Dr. Bibi Das for concluding with a very nice question and answer session. Though a lot of questions has been poured into the chat box and we have not been able to answer all, but still whatever important questions they have been able to pick up from the chat box, it was great. Last but not the least, without the audience in this specific August gathering, this webinar would not have been a success. And I am really thankful to them for sparing their valuable time on a weekend that is a Saturday, almost 2 hours, giving their valuable time to make it a success. Thanks again for joining with us. Thank you, Rashtriya Boudhik Manch, for a very nice organizing the webinar.